It's May the 23rd, 2015. Thought I'd show you what was growing in the garden. I posted a video last week and asked why some of my peas and corn and tomatoes were all kind of stunted and yellow. The difference between last week and this week is I've had a sprinkler out here on the garden, and it seems to really have perked things up quite a bit, so hopefully that'll do what we needed to do. Anyway, let's get started. I did a little bit of weeding since last time, but clearly not here in the onions. Right here at still got the potatoes we talked about. They're growing in partially composted horse manure and pine and wood shavings. So they're a little bigger than they were last week. The onions look all about the same. These are walking onions. They're about done. The candy onions, kind of halfway out here, look pretty small. Some of these don't look too terribly bad. They're starting to bulb, so hopefully we'll have a few onions out of those. The lettuce is starting to bolt. It's kind of turned bitter, so it's not tasting all that great anymore. Ditto for the spinach, which you really can't see for the weeds. Cilantro already bolted. Cabbages here, probably need to cut at least 2 or 3 of those and do something with them. Broccoli is ready to go. A lot of it is already bolting, like right there. About to bolt, starting to bolt. But there are a few where there's some heads left. Like there's a fairly nice one right there. There's my hand to give you an idea. Anyway, it's broccoli here. Won't have this much longer. I'm feeding the bolted heads to my chickens, and then starting to cut the bottom leaves off and feed those to the chickens. They really like them. So this is dino kale, and it's kind of behind everything else because I planted it way late, but looks pretty good. The water seems to have helped it. It's kind of firmed everything up. It's growing some new leaves and whatnot. So anyway, there's potatoes. Don't know if I should fertilize them or not. It's kind of what they look like. But anyway, potatoes. I don't have a whole lot of hope for those this year, but we'll see what they do. This is my row of tomatoes and peppers. These are pretty rough looking last week. These are Goliath. My neighbor brought them over, and they had sat in the pot way too long. They were really tall and spindly, but maybe the water and a little fertilizer is going to help them perk up. I guess I probably have a strange looking tomato row. What I do is I separate the varieties of tomatoes and the varieties of peppers, and put some tomatoes between the peppers and some peppers between the tomatoes. These are some peppers, but I don't remember what they are. They're either bell or jalapeno. They don't look like bell, so I'm going to assume jalapeno. Some eggplants that looks like I either need to spray or put something on them. Looks like they're getting eaten up a little bit. The tomatoes look quite a bit better than last year. Still not great, but quite a bit better. The leaves, normally when I grow tomatoes, the leaves are just giant. And these aren't yet, but they're looking quite a bit better. These are Opala tomatoes, and this one's gonna make a liar out of me. Most of them have a tomato or two on them already, but this is what they're doing since I caged them last week. And there's a couple of tomatoes. Most of them don't have more than one, but a few blooms, like you can see some blooms here. So anyway, it's the Opala tomatoes. These are not quite waist high yet. These are ghost peppers, and they're between, there's only 3 plants, but they're between the Opala tomatoes and the Better Boys. It's like the starts of a few blooms there. These are normally huge by the end of the summer. They don't usually take off, at least in my garden, until the weather gets hot and it gets dry. These normally will be, you know, over waist high, and it'll fill in all the space between the plants. These are Better Boy tomatoes, and what the plants look small. There are a couple of tomatoes on them. Normally my plants are much bigger before they ever start setting fruit. It's usually around this time of the year, but the plants are normally much larger than this. So they have a tomato or two on each of these Better Boy plants. You know what? I just the pepper plants back there that I told you were ghost peppers. They were not. That must be a bell pepper or something, because these are definitely ghost peppers right here. And then the last tomatoes here on the end, these are just a cherry tomato. And again, normally these leaves are just huge. They're normally this long and this wide. I've grown this variety for a number of years, and the leaves are normally just huge. So hopefully the water that I've added will, I've started watering, you see the ground is wet. Hopefully that'll help them, give them a good kickstart here while the weather isn't terribly hot yet. This one's a little over waist high in bloom, so hopefully we'll have some tomatoes. These are my girl's favorites. Here's my corn. This end of the row is I don't know, 18 or 20 inches tall, and then it gets short and then a little bit taller, and then out of that end of the row doesn't look all that great. But this row, I got out here with a hoe and hoed a lot of the weeds up, and then I fertilized the row pretty heavily with nitrogen, so and then obviously the water. So hopefully, I don't think the weeding is going to help a whole lot, but hopefully a little bit of the nitrogen and then the water will help it. And then there's some tomatoes. This is where I had tomatoes last year, so there's some tomatoes that are coming up. And some of them I hoed. A couple of the big ones like this I just left alone. And I actually put a cage around them. There's 3 cages right here in the corn. So anyway, there's that. These are green beans. They still look a little yellow, but they're actually greening up a little bit. They don't look as bad as they did. So hopefully the water, they didn't get anything special except for water. That seems to be making a difference. They're already blooming. Normally they're a lot bigger than this before they bloom. But some of them are, well, actually quite a few of them are already blooming. Okay, those are green beans. Blue Lake bush beans, I think. Except for this last piece of this row is Roma. These are pink-eye purple hull peas, and also hoed in this row some this week. They really have greened up and started to grow a little, so these look more normal. Maybe they should be a little bigger than this normally for me, but they're at least looking pretty green now with just some water. Since this row had some water, you can start to tell what things are. Sunflowers here. I fill in the end of a row. If I run out of plants to do a row, I stick some sunflowers in because my girls like them, and it's good for the pollinators to have something to come eat. So these last few plants are sunflowers, and they've really kind of taken off, and they look like what they're supposed to. That looks like a yellow squash that got mixed in with some zucchini. These are zucchini. There's a couple of different kinds. And then some yellow squash here. Try to separate the yellow squash from the 2 zucchinis with a yellow squash between them. I think this is a green zucchini. I want to say that one down there was some kind of gray zucchini. I remember I planted some late last year and it didn't grow that well. This is what I've always planted, and it seems to always do well. And then a few okra plants right here. We don't need a lot of okra, but there's a few okra plants. Rather than planting them really close together, I'm going to have fewer plants and let them kind of make a bush. See if how that does for us. These are some peppers that my girls saw, I think at Home Depot. This is called a lunchbox orange. And this one was pimento. So these I didn't start. We'll see how they do. Looks like there's already a couple of peppers here. This water, watering the garden, seems to have done it kind of a couple times this week, and seems to have made the sweet potatoes finally start to run. They had been just kind of sitting there like this, looking exactly like they looked when I put them in the ground. But looks like this water was pretty helpful, because I see some vines starting on a few of them here. Look, this one's starting. Look, this one. So hopefully sweet potatoes will start growing really well now. Looks like they just needed some water. And then I've got 10 tobacco plants.